helpful. I forget about that crazy little voice.
Yep.
I would like to officially welcome people to Ask Me Anything Live. Today is the 12th, I believe. And we were just talking about the website protection package, and I'm going to get Marcia some updates. Marcia, were there any questions?
There is actually. I was really glad this call is today. So I am trying to protect my Mighty Network, which is on the Mighty Networks platform.
Yep.
And they have their own terms of use and privacy policies,
Okay.
which they list in a footer.
Let me just go look.
You really only see them if you go to a landing page of a Mighty Network.
Got it. Do you want to share your page? Do you want me to go check out your page? Give me your URL, and you're also welcome to pop it into the chat because I can open it directly that way.
Let me do that.
Okay, perfect. And for folks listening, we're covering a little bit, what you do when you are using a third-party platform like Mighty Networks, like Teachable. There are so many nowadays. Lots of others where they're hosting your content, your course, maybe you have a mini series, something that, is hosted on a third-party platform. Where do you put your terms, right? Where do you get your legal stuff?
Yeah, and do I need to mention their terms in mine?
No, you don't. But let me just go. I'm going to go click through to your link and see what I see here.
Yeah, and then I can tell you where I think I can put them in my network, but there might be a better place.
Totally. Let me take a peek. I'm just going to scroll to the bottom real quick. Yeah, so you see that little Mighty Networks banner at the very bottom, terms of use, privacy policy. That probably is not going to go anywhere, right? I'm guessing that that's a permanent embed in anybody's.
That's their thing, yeah. Everybody sees that who has any kind of Mighty Network. That's totally at the landing page.
Yep, exactly. So what you could do with yours, there's a couple of things. And does Mighty Networks, I assume based on the way that their functionality, because what I'm thinking is that some of the third-party platforms actually allow you to do a redirect. And it looks like you do, since yours shows up on CLC Neighborhood, but this bottom part stays with you. So
because it goes there. So if you click the Explore button at the top of the page, it'll just open my network up because it's a public one.
Got it. So if you click through to Explore,
you don't have to join, so anybody can see this.
Okay, got it. Are you okay with me sharing the screen so that for people watching the recording?
Sure.
Let me just share screen real quick so that people can see what we see, and we can use this as a little educational moment. So you can see all my crazy tabs at the top. We're talking about down here, and I'm just going to click back so that for anybody watching the recording, they see what we see. But we're looking at Marcia's page on the Mighty Networks. And welcome to Mary. Welcome to Marianne. Just wanted to say hello. And if you have a question, hang on because we'll get to you in a moment. So what we were talking about here is down here, the Mighty Networks. It's probably going to be similar on Teachable, on other third-party platforms where you are hosting content on somebody else's platform. These terms of use and privacy policy that show up down here at the bottom. So Marcia was telling us if you click through to Explore, this takes you through to your platform within Mighty Networks. Okay. Do people first, Marcia, hit this page first? Do they always land here to begin with?
If they're not logged in.
Okay.
If they're already logged in, they'll pop right into where you were.
Got it. Okay, so if they're not logged in, let's just pretend I'm a member of the public. I haven't signed up for your services. This is what I would hit first.
Right.
Right, okay. So on this page, I would like to see a couple things. One, right here where it says keep up with Creative Life Center Neighborhood on the Go, down here.
Now, I don't have any control over anything beyond what says see you in the neighborhood. I can add to that, but I can't control any of that bottom part.
Down here okay, say that again.
So where it says see you in the neighborhood, scroll back down a little bit. That see you in the neighborhood, that's text I wrote, and I can put things underneath that, but I can't put it anywhere. I don't do any of that. That's all automatically done for me.
The keep up with the Creative Life Center. So this is an opt-in form that I assume Mighty Networks platform has provided you.
Yep, they put that in there. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have a way to update this form, is what
Nope.
you're saying. Okay.
Nope.
Ideally, and you could check on it, there might be developers that are experienced with Mighty Networks because plenty of people are going to be hosting content there. What I would like to see is underneath any opt-in form. So this one is a phone number, in particular with phone numbers. If you violate the Telephone Consumer Protection Act or the telephone sales rule, there are quite a few penalties. Sorry, I might have to run upstairs. My 3-year-old is yelling at me. I have a feeling she's in the pot on the potty. One second. I would want to see a link to your privacy policy, right? I'd want some specific language that says I consent to receiving text messages and updates and notifications at this number, right? But some other disclosures, including a link to your privacy policy, whether it's phone number or email address, but it's really important that it show up here. And I'll come back and talk a little bit more about that. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to stop my video and go help my daughter, and I'll be right back.
How are you guys today?
I muted myself. Good.
Have you been on calls with Heather before?
I have not actually.
I have not either.
I have not yet. I can't remember. I downloaded something from her, or I got something. I just wanted to sort of listen in, but I guess
there she is.
Does she give or no, you're back already.
Yep, I'm back.
That was good, fast. Wow.
Yeah.
That was quick.
My 3-year-old is so much fun, but she's a really good advocate for herself, which I love, and it helps us have a lot of clarity.
That's awesome.
But I really mean that. She's just such a good little communicator. So what I'm thinking, Marcia, is if you're not able to update that little opt-in section, you could put a disclosure right above it, below your other language that says, you know, and make it conspicuous, meaning that it's either in bold or not easy to miss, right? There are ways that we need to call attention to certain language that says, you know, if you opt in, and let me see if you have another opt-in above or below. Let me just look.
Nope, that's just information.
Just that. And is it just a text opt-in? Because
all it is letting them, they text them a link to get the Mighty Network app on their phone. That's it.
Oh, got it. Okay. So no wonder that's controlled by Mighty Networks. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So with that, Mighty Networks then is going to be responsible for the disclosure related to that particular text opt-in. So the liability is on them. That's good news for you. But you could say, let me ask you this, do you get sent any information about people who enroll right here? Do you get sent their, so you don't actually get their phone numbers or anything?
Nope.
Okay. So the disclosure that you could make immediately above this is like, you know, if you want to join us and stay up to date on our activities through the app, you can, you know, get access below. And just say, this is through Mighty Networks. We do not collect this information directly and do not have access to your phone number, right? So you can make it really clear right there. That would probably be helpful. And that way, you know, hopefully somebody sees it because it's right above that little opt-in point. And then in regards to where you could post your own terms of use and privacy policy, let me just do a quick Google search. Does Mighty Networks allow?
And I have never seen that. And I'm actually pretty well versed on Mighty Networks. So.
And you've never seen other people being able to post
in fact, people ask, and I was going to talk to them again after I talked to you, but
yeah. So definitely users should be contacting them about this. Basically, any platform where you're able to post your content, you should have your own sets of terms and conditions and privacy policies that apply. I'm just looking at their privacy policy because it looks like what they say, and this makes sense, is that by using their platform, you're granting them a license to your content. And presumably that's because they're the host. They're going to be showing it on their platform to however many numbers of users. They need to be able to have that license in place to remain a host of such a platform. I'm just going to scan this really quick. And then Marianne and Mary, you're welcome to type a question in the chat, and we'll shift over here in just a bit. I just want to make sure we do what we can to try to address this. But I would contact them, Marcia, and find out where they are providing users with the ability to post their own terms and conditions and privacy policy, because that is super important. And if they don't have it, they need to be working on providing that.
I don't think they do. So can I show you where I thought I would do it until I could get them to do something?
Totally.
So if you open up that explore button.
Yep.
So there's a minimum of places I have control over. But if you look at that list, neighborhood guide is a link I actually can control.
Oh, okay.
And right now I have it open up an area of the network has some posts about the network to help people. So I could change it to an area that had separate posts for the terms and conditions and the privacy.
Are you able to add any links to this list?
Only the neighborhood guide. I could change it. I would have to not have my neighborhood guide come up. I would have to have it go to a different place.
So they're just on a home page right here. Can you pin any posts at the top of the page? How does this?
Well, like they have the welcome section.
Yep.
That's what shows up to new members, and it changes to a featured section.
Okay.
It doesn't quite stay at the top because if you have your window open for a while, new posts go above it.
It'll repopulate.
Yeah. Well, and what's in it would stay the same, but there would be another post above it.
Right. No, I get that.
It would move down the page. So there's nothing. The only thing that really stays is that left-hand column.
Yeah. So I'm seeing that this platform does have some limitations. Let me click through to the neighborhood guide and see what this is about.
So it looks similar to what you just saw, like an activity feed. And I could. But what I would actually, a better idea of what I would do is if you click to resources. Instead. Click to resources and then click on one of these, like tech tools and recommendations. Because I would set up one of these to be my terms and privacy stuff. And then I would list. And I would always, you can have those featured things up there. Nobody else could post in here. It would only be the 3 different things I would normally put on a footer. And so if they clicked this link, I would rename the link instead of neighborhood guide. It could say terms and privacy or something. And then it would open up and you would see those 3 articles.
Got it. Now, what would you be missing by letting go of this neighborhood guide?
That's for people to get help, basically.
Okay. And you're not able to add any additional links here?
Not right now. By the end of the year, I will be able to, but not until later in the year when they put an update out.
Got it. Okay.
So right now, I also have that. I mean, people can find it in other ways. It was just to bring that to the top.
No, I get it. I totally get it. And this, I remember, did you have another website, but you don't really use it?
Right. And that one I can put them at the bottom and I'll update that too.
Yeah. Because it may be, so when people join here, so like, let's say that somebody, do they join here and then become a paid person in one of your programs, or are they only here if they have enrolled in a subscription? Or
No, they would come here first, and then so it's a free membership.
Free
so there's a whole bunch
community.
of people, free community, and then inside some of the programs they're paid.
Okay, got it. Okay. So
And that's gonna be the next spot, is being able to have people approve the program stuff. But I'm gonna do
Right.
this part first, and then I'll
Okay.
work on that.
So once somebody joins here, do you collect, outside of the platform, do you collect any name, email address, contact info?
So when they join, they sign up with their email and name and such. That goes in here into the platform. Mighty Networks has it. I can download it if I want. And I actually have a zap that
Okay.
zaps them into a MailChimp
Got
list
it.
that
With
I
your
only
CRM.
use.
Yeah.
I only use about the neighborhood. I don't use it for general stuff,
Okay.
because they haven't really said that they wanted anything other than information about the neighborhood.
And when they sign up for your community, where are they doing that?
So click the sign up link and you'll see up in the
Sign-
right corner.
Oh, sign in right here.
Oh yeah, or sign up, either way.
Sign in. Okay.
So then go up to, this is really hokey, but so go to sign in where you were.
Yep.
And then up in the upper right, it says sign up.
Oh,
They
got
need
it.
help with their
And so this is creating an account to Mighty Networks, but for your group.
Yep,
Okay.
inside my
In
network.
your group.
Yeah.
Okay, got
Mhm.
it.
So it's not like Facebook where you have one link that signs you into all Mighty Networks.
Yeah.
Each Mighty Network is their own
Got it.
website.
So if I signed up for your group, I'd have to sign up separately for
Yeah.
somebody else's group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood. Well, and yeah, so
And
I
they've
would,
got their terms and privacy policy
Right,
at the
down
bottom, but I
here.
have no control about this page at all.
right, and I'm seeing that. So the issue is that by law, you're still responsible for the information that you collect, even through third-party platforms, right?
Okay.
And so I'm just looking here. We and your host use your personal data. So you would be the host.
Yep.
Data does not include their content or user-generated content. So they're the host, it sounds like, is not keeping things like comments, uploads. I don't know if they're able to post photos, anything of that nature.
They can do all that. I don't have any way to download it.
Right. So that's what they're saying here. Data does not include that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but their personal data, yes, their email, their name, that's considered personal data. Let's see. So yeah, I would reach out to Mighty Networks. They've got some improvements from a legal standpoint. They've got some improvements to make to their platform to make sure that it's really allows their host to be compliant as well.
Okay.
And so I would just ask them, what is their plan for people that are using, and have they designed this to be used as kind of a pseudo website? Do you know other people
Yes.
that are using Mighty Networks as their home base
Yeah,
kind of website?
There are some,
Mhm.
and they say that on their website, that on the Mighty Networks website says it can be a website.
Got it. Do you have the ability on your, like inside of your platform, for an email opt-in directly to your newsletter?
No, not unless, I mean, I could put up a post that links to my MailChimp
Oh,
sign
got
up
it. Like a
thing,
separate link.
Yeah.
Okay.
but not built in.
Yeah, so in that way, they are different than a website, meaning that they're more like a live feed. You know what I mean? This is very much a feed type of feature. It'll
It
be-
is, it's moving away, a little bit away from that, but it is kind of a combination of a blog post and
right,
a social media thing.
right, but without the control that you'd normally have on a website.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, you do not have that.
Well, hopefully they're working on that. What I would like to see is somewhere over here. So if you're able to give them feedback, what I would like to see is that you are able to post your terms and conditions directly here, adding links on the side. that that they add functionality at the bottom, including on that main homepage when people go to sign in, that is able to display your links, just because that's where people normally expect to find that stuff.
Right.
Right. So if they're, you know, accustomed to reviewing terms or privacy policy or whatever, they're going to go to the normal places you would go to look for that. And
Right.
usually
And look there.
it's going to be in the footer menu. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to Katie. I just connected with Katie last week, which is so fun. So yeah, if you are able to make those requests directly,
I will.
those would be improvements. The other thing is that, and let me just go back to our, let's see, we are at your homepage. I noticed that on the main page, and let me go back, I'm just going to grab the link out of chat.
Yeah, you just have to take the feed out of there. And
yeah, that's right. And I see, Mary, I see your comment. Marianne, hello. All right, we're going to click over here next. I'm just going back to this main page because the other place I'd like to see it when we're looking at this page, you know, is you can have it up here in the header menu, right? So somebody's aware of your privacy and your terms and conditions even before they sign up. That is better advance notice. Down here would be good, at least at a minimum. It's where people expect to find things like legal terms. The other thing that you can do, and I don't know if I'm doubting, because it looks like Mighty Networks is a little behind some of the other platforms on functionality. Like with Teachable, for example, when you achieve a redirect, and so like somebody, if they were going to my content on Teachable, it's at academy.legalwebsitewarrior.com. I can have a cookies consent pop up appear on that domain, just like it was my own website. That's the level of functionality I'd like to see. You want to be able to have a consent notice pop up saying, hey, these, you know, terms and this privacy policy applies to your visit, and have them click and acknowledge that. That's best practices. So you'd want Mighty Networks to be able to respond on, are they planning for that functionality? They should be. If they're not already, they should be.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I will definitely do that. And then they have an app, and I assume that has all kinds of different things, but.
Yeah, within the app, that's a whole different world. You'd want to have your own, well, really it's there. So it's called a EULA, end user license agreement, for the app. I'm sure they already have that. You're basically required, and you're required to have a privacy policy before you're even able to upload an app onto Google Play or Apple, you know, the Apple
so
platform.
They've got it, all that. Okay.
So I'm sure that they've got that done, but it's still probably doesn't have the functionality that you would need to post your website terms and conditions if it's doubling like, you know, like a website for you, and your own privacy policy. But that partly depends on data collection practices, etc. And I know we talked a little bit about this. If I were you, I would not build exclusively my platform on a third party, right? I wouldn't build my entire business around a third party platform. I'd find some way to create a blend. So I would go pay some attention to your own website and your own landing page. Have those things be working in tandem with each other so that people get accustomed to occasionally popping out of Mighty Networks to go to your website and see a blog post there. The reason being is you want to be able to create a funnel and a database that relies on your own website as one of the main points of collection, so that if Mighty Networks does something crazy or changes their policies or they get bought out, that you're not stuck with a level of functionality that makes you irritated, right? Which happens and can happen. And so, hey, sweet pie. Somebody's building a train track and they want me to come see it. So I would try to develop a strategy that blends those things and allows your website to be part of the conversation, so that if anything ever happens to Mighty Network, you are fine. You have a way that you can take what you've built and move to another platform, repurpose the content, do whatever. But I would be very careful in examining their policies and examining their flexibility, including around what happens to your own content as the host, right? I could see very quickly what they said about user generated content, and that's going to be the end party user, not you. You'd want to make sure that you have a way of capturing that content. If you ever close down your account, if something happens on their end and you're forced to close that as a platform, I'd want to make sure that you have a way of recapturing that content.
Yeah.
So that would be a question that I have for them as well.
Okay.
Okay.
That is very helpful.
Good.
Thank you much. I have a meeting with them on Thursday, so
good job. I'm so glad you're on top of it. Watch your email. I will follow up with those other documents.
Okay,
the updated
thank you.
versions.
And I'm going to have to run, but
no worries.
Is there a recording of this to listen to the rest of it?
Yeah. So I will
Perfect.
post it to my my YouTube channel, and I can send out the link. I can send you the link.
Okay. Thank you much.
Thanks, Marcia. Bye-bye. All right. Thanks to everybody else for your patience. I know that was quite a walkthrough. So we've got Mary, we've got Marianne. Welcome to Katie. Welcome to Alana or Alana. And I apologize if I mispronounced that. So Mary is interested in finding out if the name she's hoping to use on a broader scale for her practice or business is taken already. She would love to put a trademark by it to claim it and also get the URL for it, integrate it into other things in her business, like a Facebook page, YouTube channel, etc. Okay, Mary, that's a great question. So the way Alana has a similar question, I love that. This often happens on these calls. So the couple ways that you can approach that. One is you can actually go do a search yourself in the USPTO trademark database. Now it's not a guarantee, right? What I always tell people is before they're deciding a brand name, a business name, to do quite a bit of research on the internet, right? Use the Google and go research whatever name it is that you want to be using, and make sure that you're not finding other uses of it online. Now, if you are, at that point, I would hire an attorney or at least consult with one on whether you still have an opportunity to use the name that you want, whether a minor tweak or change to it would allow you that use. You'd want to make sure that you have it's called a knockout search done, where an attorney does a search for you using several tools, including the USPTO trademark database, to make sure that you are not infringing upon a registered mark. Understand, though, that there's also something called common law trademark rights, where you don't have to be registered to still have certain rights to the use of a mark. So this is where, depending on what's in the marketplace, depending on what you find, you would maybe need some skilled assistance in running that search. But start with Google. If you don't find anything there, go to the USPTO and do their basic trademark search and see what you can find yourself. If at that point you still have questions, come back. A knockout search, I charge clients $300 for that search. And that's usually in preparation for a trademark application. So like I just filed 4 trademark applications last week, right? A knockout search is always the first step of that. So I would say, get in touch and get some assistance if you have any questions, or if it looks like there's something similar in the marketplace, you're going to want some skilled guidance around that. And the other thing to keep in mind is that just because a domain name is available doesn't mean that you're not infringing upon somebody else's mark. So I often will get people that say, oh, the domain was available, so, therefore the mark is available. Not necessarily. Just because the domain is available doesn't mean that that is what you should be naming your business or your brand. It goes, you need to do some additional steps. So hopefully that helps. Mary, if you're with us, you're welcome to go live or ask any additional questions on that point, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a starting point. Basically, you want to do a fair amount of research.
Yeah, that sounds like it all makes sense. I know that people do, I like the basic thing. You just put your TM up there and you sort of claim it. I'm using air quotes, claim it, until somebody comes and gets you or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and let's talk about that use of the TM. The way you would use that, I'll come help you in a minute, okay? Can you go? I love this little pumpkin. It's okay. Do you want to go do a puzzle real quick? Do a puzzle. Mommy will come help you. This little girl could just build and do puzzles and Legos and train tracks for hours. Love her little brain. So the proper use of TM around a name, a short phrase, right? So trademarks are used to protect a name, a short phrase, a tagline, which is a short phrase, a single word sometimes, right? Like Nike or Starbucks. So it's not for anything long. It's just a word, a name, a short phrase, tagline. You can also get a trademark for a design mark, right? So for example, Nike and Starbucks, they're going to have a trademark around both the name of the company as well as a design mark for their logos. They have very distinctive logos. So some entrepreneurs, some businesses, some companies are going to protect both. Other clients, I've had clients where they just want the word mark and they don't care so much about the design because they haven't invested a whole lot into a professional design, or they're not particularly worried about somebody imitating the look of their mark. Now, when do you use TM? If you are filing an application or immediately before filing, you have intent to file a trademark registration application for that phrase or word. You don't just throw TM up there to lay claim to it and then not do anything about it. It signifies to people like you are actively taking steps to protect that from a legal perspective. Now, once you get the registration, then you can put the R in the circle, but that's literally, 12 to 18 months later when the examiner assigned to your file at the USPTO comes back to you and says, this has registered without opposition, right? You've made your way through the entire process and you actually have a registration. That's when you can begin putting the R in the circle after that phrase or word or brand name. Does that help?
Yeah, I knew about that. Kind of there's a pathway from TM to R, and
yep,
and that's not a cheap one necessarily.
But it's also not as expensive as people often think. So let's talk about that for a moment, because so for example, I worked with a client last week. We are just actually filing his registration today. He does a lot in his business. He has an online education type of business. He runs a podcast. He does coaching and consulting. He does retreats and workshops. His trademark, and I work with other clients who do similar things, but based on their business, they have to register a mark. They have to obtain a registration across 4 classes for all of that protection. For him, based on his work and what he does, we were able to get all of that within class 41. So the trademark system, you register by class. So class 41, which is a single class, and this is how the fee system is set up at the USPTO, it's a $250 filing fee per class, right? So class 16, for example, is paper goods. Like if you were to publish a book, you have an ebook, maybe you have other like a workbook or downloadables that are paper goods, or let's say you're putting on retreats or workshops and you actually distribute paper goods or printouts or products as a part of that workshop. That's class 16. Totally different than digital downloads, digital media, digital content, right? Which is class 9. And then online education, which is class 41. So you have to register trademarks by class. Now, some clients I register across 4 classes because they've got a lot going on in their business, and the type of protection they need distributes them across 4 classes. So that's, about $1,000 in filing fees to the USPTO. And then my fee for registering a mark is $14.97. It starts at $14.97 for single class application, single mark. But like with this guy that I just recently helped, he's going to get a lot done with 1 mark. So it was a $14.97 fee to me and then a $250 filing fee, right? So $17.50. Now, that may sound like a lot compared to, let's say, a trademark registration, right? Which I charge $250 for a copyright registration, But it's a very different purpose. The way that I describe trademarks versus copyrights is if you think of your brand as a mountain, like Mount Rainier, right? I'm relatively close to Mount Rainier. I can see it fairly close from my house on certain, viewpoints. trademarks protect what is visible to the marketplace. So like the snow-capped peaks of Mount Rainier, right? If you think of your brand or your business as a mountain, trademarks protect the top of that mountain. What is visible from the marketplace? Your brand name, your logo, your tagline. It's how people refer to your business or recognize that your business is responsible for that service or that good. Maybe it's a signature course or program or product name, right? So like one of my clients years ago considered getting a trademark on what became his signature program, and he delayed a bit. He had the thought like, oh, that's too expensive, right? I'll put it off when I have a bigger budget. Well, literally just a few years later, this program was making him millions of dollars a year. He finally decided he had enough budget to pursue that, went to get a registration, and some school in the middle of Arkansas owned the trademark to that signature program, right? And of course, this was before he became my client. I do not like, budget is relative. What that has cost him versus what it would have cost him to do, very different. Another client, very similar situation, except he did pursue a trademark, pursued it on his own. The trademark office asked him to sign off on an exception to his mark that he didn't understand. So he signed off on it because he did not have legal help in place at the time, signed off on the exception. He has a worldwide brand now, worldwide following. We put like $2.8 million of advance fee publishing agreements in place for him. He cannot get other trademarks registered in foreign countries around the world because they all look back to that original registration, and he made a mistake because he, at a point in his business where he was playing small, felt like he didn't have the budget to work with an attorney. That single mistake has cost him tens of thousands of dollars to date in legal fees, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in the near term, based on how many copycats he has around the world trying to distribute products under his brand name. So, you know, when I think of $1,700 for a business investment, like that, to me, it's all relative, but that is for long-term brand protection, for protection that's not only going to help you next year once you have the registration, but 5 years after that, 10 years after that, if you are continuing in this line of business. It's massive, the amount of confidence and protection you have from obtaining a mark. And actually, final example, let's go back to this guy that we're filing his registration today. He's been using this mark, so he has common law trademark rights for about 10 years. Like, you Google him, his name comes up in conjunction with this particular phrase. But he just discovered, like a couple months ago, that there's a whole group of guys that have taken his mark, registered a separate domain, and are totally offering services under his brand name, right? Same brand name. They obviously knew it was taken because he owns the .com. They registered the .co. He does not yet have a registered mark. We're moving quickly to get him a registered mark, but the amount that could cost him just having to pursue other people in the marketplace to get them to knock it off, he should have done this 5 or 8 or 10 years ago when he launched his brand, right? So it's all relative. What you end up paying to maintain your place in the marketplace can be so much more than just paying for a registration fee for a trademark. So in my opinion, you know, a $1,500 fee for legal services and a couple $100 for a filing fee, it's an easy investment for what you get. And remember, that's top of the mountain type visibility. From there, the rest of the mountain, just to complete that analogy, is copyrights. So the body of your work, let's say you publish articles, or you do video blogs, or you do tutorials, or you have a workbook that you've put together that is the core of your work that you develop, right? And that you share. Maybe you have a variety of services that are based around these same core concepts. Copyright is how you protect the body of the work, the bulk of the work that you're doing. And those registrations are much more attainable. You have more of those registrations to do generally, because most people that I serve actually create quite a lot of content. Now, you can be strategic about it to get registrations around the right type of content, but a trademark, comparatively, you're not probably doing 5 or 10 trademarks in your business life. Most people that I serve might have one, they might have a couple, at most they might have a handful, depending on their level of business and how many, key offerings they have, their visibility in the marketplace, etc. But even one or two registrations, in my world, not a big deal. Like it's an absolute core part of your intellectual property protection plan. So there's my little rant. I hope that helped put it in context. But do you have any additional questions based on that piece of it?
No, it sounds to me like I have some steps to take to kind of check it out, and then using it is only just using it is a stopgap to really doing the steps needed to secure it. And it doesn't mean nothing, but it doesn't mean a lot in the long run. It's sort of a little bit of a stopgap.
You mean using it, the piece about just getting started using it?
Yeah, just putting the TM up there, is not nothing, but it's not very much.
Oh, using the TM. Yeah, you need to be taking additional action to be able to use that TM in good faith. Yep.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And to your point though, about even using not necessarily the TM, but using the mark, right? Let's say, you have a brand name that you've decided on. I will often get the question like, oh, well, should I not use it until I, have a plan in place to go get the registration? I've got a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah.
One, first use in commerce is what puts you first in line for the mark, right? So, and based on my experience, the way that ideas develop in the marketplace, if you have an idea, you need to be using it. You need to be expressing it. I mean, understand the protections that you need, but don't not use it because you don't yet have the budget for the trademark. What I would say is use it and be developing the budget for the trademark, right? Because you want to be able to, when you file the mark, which hopefully follows relatively soon, be able to say, I started actively using this in commerce on such and such date. Otherwise, the other type of mark that you can register is called a 1B, which is intent to use. Now, but that's assuming you have the budget right now. If you have $1,750 to spend on registration of a mark, go for it. And if you're not using it, and I've done this for clients as well, we register under 1B, which is intent to use, and then we get the plan in place of like, when's your website going to go live? When will we have a specimen to work with? Because you've got like a 6-month window once you're assigned an examiner and the clock starts ticking, that you then provide the specimen of actual use, right? And you can get some delays for people that, it's going to take a little longer to actually develop the specimen. That's fine. You can keep putting off a 6-month window for a little while. You just pay some additional filing fees, but just have a plan, right? That's my message really to anybody, is have a plan. Don't sell yourself short, understand what you need, and then work really hard to treat your business like a business and take care of it the right way. Because one, you'll just skip so many hurdles that other people end up facing and that ultimately cost them more in the long run.
Yeah. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Great questions, though. I love this conversation because one of my favorite things to do is to help people understand how these pieces all fit. And I'm seeing, if you're okay, I've got some other related questions here in the chat that I'd like to answer that are on topic for this.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great to connect with you, Mary. So I've got a question about, so we already answered what's the difference between, using TM and R in the circle. This one, Marianne, is getting your company incorporated the same as getting a trademark? Great question. So there's a couple things that you need to think about. Getting your company incorporated does a couple things. One, and this is very, very important, it is the only way to separate out business liability from your personal assets. So officially incorporating, and what does that mean? Incorporating means setting up a C corporation, an LLC. You can set up what's called an S corp. That's actually a tax election status that is made to either an LLC or a C corporation. Those are the most common ones that I deal with. There are other types of entities, but essentially you're filing paperwork with your Secretary of State saying, here's my company, right? Here's the name. I'm getting it registered. I'm paying a filing fee. Different than a DBA. A DBA is also a fee that you pay to the state, but that's generally like $10 or $20. And a DBA stands for doing business as. It's also called a fictitious name. It's just a way for you to say, let's say that, you know, Bob Green starts a plumbing company called Green's Plumbing, right? He is going to, and he's a sole proprietor, right? But he wants a DBA. So he's going to file a little registration, probably with his county, maybe with his state, but lets the government know that the DBA Green's Plumbing belongs to him as Bob Green. It's just a way for the state to connect a business entity that's functioning as a sole proprietor to a personal, this is the key issue, personal individual tax ID. You're putting down your own social security number. Now you can create a legal entity and have separate DBAs that are related to that entity, but a DBA alone is not enough. That does not create an entity. You have to take the step of creating an entity, either a C Corp, an LLC, an S Corp, some official entity that's recognized by your state, in order to, again, tell the state, tell the court system, tell your clients, tell the IRS, my business is over here, my personal life is over here. As a sole proprietor, and why is this, let's talk for a minute about why this is such a big issue. 60% of small businesses in the United States are sole proprietors. They never set up an official entity, which means that we have all of these individuals running around operating small businesses without any liability protection. And it's a considerable risk. There's actually been conversations on my legal listservs about whether or not allowing clients to remain sole proprietors actually constitutes legal malpractice. That's how big of an issue it is. So if you are in the business of coaching, consulting, you know, the space of people that I serve, as much as possible, do not remain a sole proprietor for very long. Get incorporated, set up your business, and do all of that the right way. Again, it's not that much money, especially in the long run. It'll save you money. You will have tax breaks and tax advantages that you get as an incorporated entity that are not available to you as a sole proprietor. Right? You've got some tax strategies that are available to you that are not available to you as a sole proprietor. So there's lots of advantages. And from a mental standpoint, like even just a mindset standpoint, you will up your game in your business. You relate differently to your business when you treat it like a business, which also means your clients are going to relate to your business differently. Your whole level of perceived professionalism goes up. So that's my little, spiel about incorporating. And Marianne, to specifically answer your question, it is not the same as getting a trademark, right? So incorporating is done at the state level. You definitely want to do a search of other business names before you incorporate, because again, you want to make sure that if you do have a business in your local economy or in your state with a similar business name, that one, you're aware of it so you can make an informed choice about your business, and two, that if you are considering getting a federal trademark, and most people, let's be clear, most people that I serve that are in the online information space, we're talking about federal trademarks. These are not people usually running a local state version, state specific business, right? It's mostly not brick and mortar stores that I serve. It's people that can be found on the World Wide Web. Their clients are all over the United States, often all over the world. You need a federal level trademark registration. So those are two different things. But doing a proper search at your state level is going to set you up for better success at the federal level. If you're going to also seek a federal trademark registration, you can be aware of whether or not there are any local businesses that are similar in your state. And you can also, based on the outcome of that search, that state level search done at your corporations division or Secretary of State in your whatever state you're in, you can go to the Federal Trademark Register and search for those specific marks to see, do those businesses own a federal level trademark? So they're related, but they're not the same. I hope that helps answer that question, Marianne. Very separate. The trademark at the federal level allows you to use that mark in commerce, interstate and, federally.
Okay, actually, I'm in Canada and I got
Mhm.
my company incorporated by Canada.
Yep.
And then they say, what province are you in? And I told them. So yeah, I had to do a search, which was for any similar names to see if I had a unique name. So
Mhm.
is that going to be the same as, so what's the advantage of getting a trademark once you've incorporated?
Well, the advantage is that you can say to the marketplace, I have the right, and the trademark, let's be clear that the trademark doesn't always have to be the same as your incorporated name, right? So for example, let's take Lewis House, who's my client. You know, his company is called 418 Media LLC, right? He does not have a trademark registration around his LLC entity name. My entities are similarly named, not my brand name. My brand name for my online business is the Legal Website Warrior. I do have a registration, a trademark registration around that brand name. So let's be clear that the brand name or tagline or anything that you obtain a trademark registration around can be different than your entity name. Okay, so that's point number one. But let's pretend that you chose an entity name that is your brand and you want to protect that, right? So for example, you have, whatever, Live Your Best Life LLC. You want to go get a registration around the phrase Live Your Best Life. There are some people who pursue that route as well. Now in Canada, the Marianne, the question for you, and I can't speak to the level of support that you got and whether they did adequate searches or not. But what I can say is that you're going to want to evaluate what it is that you want to seek protection around. Do you have a brand name? Do you have a tagline? What is it that you want to seek protection around? And is that the same as your entity? It may not be. And then the other question becomes, where's your audience, right? So, okay, Marianne's there. Yeah. Is your audience in Canada or are they in Canada and the US? Most of my Canadian clients have about 80% of their audience based in the US and about 20% based in Canada. And so for those clients, what they're often doing is pursuing a dual country strategy where they either seek a registration in their home country first, and then based on that, there's what's called a Section 44 application that you can make in the US that kind of streamlines your application here if it's for the same mark. Or if they're on a budget, they might just go ahead and seek the registration first in the US if 80% of their audience is based in the US, right? Which gives you rights to use that phrase or that name in commerce, in active advertising in the US. And that includes online, right? So I've got a colleague who may become a client, and we're actually addressing this very issue with him. Is there's a gal that is using a certain phrase in the US. He's been using it. He's based in Canada, and we're going through the strategy right now of, do we get him a registration in Canada first, use this Section 44 route to get one also in the US, or go directly to the US system? So those are some things to think about. Was that helpful, Marianne, if you're still with us?
Yeah, yes, I think it is. Although I'm teaching some other online courses that I haven't created, so they've already got a trademark. So I probably wouldn't need a trademark necessarily.
Are you teaching on behalf of somebody else's business? Is that what you're saying? You're teaching somebody else's course?
Yes. Exactly.
So is it like you're a facilitator for their company or something? What's your role?
Yeah, I'm like a certified trainer. I'm certified to teach the courses. Yeah.
Yeah, so as an instructor, the company itself would be responsible for protection of their IP. We'd be talking about any IP that you are creating on your own on behalf of your own business.
Okay, great.
Okay? Yeah, good questions. You're welcome. Okay, so I want to get to Katie's question about adding a blanket copyright statement to your website with the current year. Okay, and Katie, if you're available, you're welcome to go live so we can chat about this. But in regards to copyrights and copyright statements, the way, and I'm just going to pop this into the chat, I'm going to reply all. The way that you should write a copyright statement, and let's be really clear that copyrights rest with the individual Totally. Katie, I get it. No, I understand people are often in places where they can't come on live. Copyright rests with the individual unless assigned, right? So generally the way that you would write a copyright statement is like this, like C in a circle, or, you know, in these little brackets if you've got them. So let's just say we're doing mine. Copyright Heather Pierce Campbell. And actually you would do the year the work was created. So let's say that I created something this year, right? It would look like this. Copyright 2021, Heather Pierce Campbell. Now, I often will add my brand name at the end of this just so that I'm searchable. So that if somebody wanted to find me or contact me or ask me any questions, right, then they would see this, the legal website warrior, because that's pretty searchable and memorable. There we go. So I'm just hitting return on that. So you can see that copyright statement. When you put a copyright notice on a work, and first of all, I recommend that you do this. So Katie, this is a really good question, because what I recommend when it comes to copyright, and you know, let me answer another question first, is it required by law that you put a copyright notice on things? No, it's not. Copyright is created the moment you create a work and it takes some tangible form, right? So what does this mean in the online space for people that are in the information world? Generally, it means, you know, you've written an article, a blog post, maybe you've just created a video training, you know, maybe you've put something together like an infographic or even a photograph that's your own photograph that you're sharing. All of those you have copyright over. You've got copyrights too. And even without registering them, you've got copyrights. But the notice, what the notice does is it puts people on notice that you claim ownership, that if they have a question about that work, you are the one that they should be contacting, etc. I just think it's helpful. And if you have slides or a presentation where people are going to be, you know, so like I do a lot of speaking and people will often take pictures of certain slides, right? Having that copyright notice makes sure that later when they're looking through their photos or whatever, or maybe doing a screen capture, your information is there so that, and the other thing in the digital world is if they scrape that copyright notice or what's called a watermark off of your work, you actually have access to additional penalties. And so I think it's very helpful to include your copyright notice on the work itself, especially if it's a visual, or very near, like immediately below an article, immediately below, you know, if you've got like a tip sheet or, you know, so many downloadables like an opt-in, you know, quick checklist or something. I would include your copyright notice on all of that kind of content so that people know, they're aware, they don't try to screenshot it and scrape your copyright notice off. And if they do, they're in trouble, right? Yes, I'm so glad it's helpful, Katie. And then the other thing about copyright is what is the benefit to getting a registration, right? So copyright rests with the individual the moment the work takes tangible form and is created. What are the benefits of actually obtaining a registration, which is where you send a copy of that work to the United States Copyright Office, pay a filing fee. It's like $35 or $45 depending on the work, right? It's not very much. And you can do this on your own, FYI. I can help people too, because what often people need assistance with is doing what's called an intellectual property assessment, looking at their body of work and actually determining what should we make an IP strategy around? What is the core of your content and what is the best way to express that work in the world so that we can best protect it? And then putting a strategy around that, right? So some people have a hard time doing that on their own, but if you know you've got core pieces of content that are worth protecting, you can absolutely go get a copyright registration on your own. That's going to allow you access to attorney's fees and in some cases treble damages, statutory damages that actually allow for the recovery of damages. Without that, what often happens is that attorney's fees, if you have to go to battle to fight somebody who's stolen your content, is so cost prohibitive that people just are not able to do it. And the recovery is often limited, right? So I think it can start at $200 if the I'll call them perpetrator can show that it, was not in bad faith, that it was an accident, or they were not aware that they were infringing anybody's rights. damages can be as low as $200 or as high as $30,000. Or if it was intentional infringement, like really bad faith, right, they can even go higher. But it can be really hard to get those higher amounts, and particularly if you don't have support with your legal fees and with your attorney's fees. And so what the registration does is actually allows you to recover attorney's fees on top of damages. And that is actually what makes something worth pursuing, so that it's not so cost prohibitive that you are not able to protect your work. Okay, does that make sense? If you're with me, type a yes in the chat. But that's the real benefit of registrations and pursuing federal copyright registrations. Okay, good, Katie. I'm glad I was able to answer that. Kathleen says yes. Awesome. Kathleen, you look so nice today, and I will get to you next. I just want to make sure that we get through other questions that were here just a little ahead of you in line. So let's see. Mary, it looks like clicked off. Alana, let me see. What is the difference between trademark and TM and registered using the R? I think we already answered that one. Alana, if you're with us, do you have any other questions for us today?
That's all, and I do have to run, but thank you so much. It's been really helpful.
You're welcome. Great to see you on here today. And Katie, actually, I see that you have one more question. Perfect. And we can connect later. I will, for purposes of the recording, answer your question up above about signing a contract for service versus accepting terms on a website. This is a really important question. So when clients are getting ready, and basically if you haven't already, I will redirect you, and I'm just gonna, okay, Katie, I'll handle this quickly, I promise, but I'm gonna share, for purposes of people on here and anybody watching the recording, I have a free training called my Legal Basics Bootcamp. I'm going to pop the link in here, legalwebsitewarrior.com/Legal Basics Bootcamp. Okay, so there's the link. If you haven't yet already, go through that training. It's really short. It's a series of like 5-minute videos that you can walk through. You know, it's designed to be consumed over the course of 5 days. You get little prompt emails to get you to go watch each daily video, do a little bit of work. But what I walk people through in the Legal Basics Bootcamp is my 5-bucket system for legal protection. And it's the 5 buckets that you literally look into for, a comprehensive approach to protecting your business. Bucket number 2, and we've already covered incorporation, right? That's bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 is contracts. And so just to set the stage of what bucket we're looking into, Katie, this is what you're talking about is client contracts, online terms of service, privacy policy, right? Let's say you run workshops and you've got a workshop release. Let's say you're capturing images there and you need a media release. All of these are in the business contracts bucket, right? These are things that you need a client to sign that allows you to do your work safely and allows you to capture what you need to be able to repurpose content, etc. So when do you use a client services agreement versus relying on website terms and conditions, right? Couple things I want you to think about. Think about your sales process, right? How do you enroll people into the service? And what I mean by this is let's pretend that I am a high-end coach or consultant and I've got a $20,000 client program. I am going to have them sign a contract, right? Presumably that's a high-touch experience. I have a limited number of clients that will sign on at that level. I want them to have the experience of being walked through, probably with my help, the contract that they'll be signing, right? Here's what this section means. Here's what this section means. This, covers the actual services. Here's how they're going to be delivered. People who have really tight business systems do this well. And you have a series of touch points before you even get to I'll call it the legal enrollment, right? You've got your marketing language. Maybe you have some email exchanges. Maybe you have, some visits to your website where they're checking out your services. Then you have a phone call. Then you send over a document that they're going to sign. All of these experiences need to be consistent, need to have consistent language, need to reinforce at each stage what they've already learned about your services. Your legal enrollment should be no different, meaning that your legal terms and the way your services are described should match what you're actually delivering, so that there's not a disconnect when they go to actually sign up for services. Now, when does it make sense to have them actually sign a contract versus click, that little box, I have reviewed and accept the terms of purchase, right, for an online purchase? Think about your enrollment process. Is it high end? Is it high touch? Are you going to be doing some one-on-one time with this person in the delivery of the services? If so, I would invite you to consider whether or not having a contract that they sign, like through a DocuSign or HelloSign type of experience, is the better route, right? And one that you can walk them through so that they get a really, solid explanation of what's in the document, what they're signing, and their confidence level is very high. That's what I would want for that type of client. Now, let's say you're launching an online program that has, unlimited capacity. You want 200 people in that program, or 300 people, or maybe even 30, right? You don't want to have to manage 30 contracts through DocuSign, signing an individual contract for every enrollee, especially if the price point is not that high, right? So for an online course or program or service or a workshop or a live event, those are all appropriate things for that online terms of purchase, right? They're generally going to be digital offerings, online offerings, offerings that involve probably a larger number of people than a really high-end one-on-one type of service. Those are appropriate for terms of purchase, right? And let's be clear that, just so we're really clear about what documents you need in the online space, there's website terms and conditions. These are the terms that show up when a general visitor hits your site, right? So a general visitor lands on your website. They're going to browse around. They're going to look at things. They may not enroll. They may not actually sign up for anything or pay you any money. Your regular website terms and conditions are going to govern that visit to your website. Really important, because your website has a lot of intellectual property on it. Probably has visuals, probably has articles, probably has a lot of your IP in it, and people often don't think about it, but if you're publishing blog posts, you're doing video tutorials, you're setting yourself up as an expert, you're putting a lot of your language out into the world through your website. So website terms and conditions, privacy policy. These are the two core documents you need to protect your general website presence, right? And privacy policy is all about making proper disclosures to your website visitors about what information you're collecting, why you're collecting it, how you keep it safe, right? It fulfills your legal obligation as an online business owner to tell people about what you're doing with their data when they hit your site, and how you keep it safe, and how they can get out of your database if they want to. So those are the two front-facing documents. Now, if you're in the business world where you are talking about income, sales, financials, anything money related, right? Or even if you're doing like personal training in sales or something, but you're talking about income, you're talking about somebody increasing their earnings, I also want for you to have an earnings and income disclaimer on your site, because the FTC, which is the online watchdog, they want to see you posting separately that disclaimer that says this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not a massive business opportunity, right? You're not going to make $1 million in a year taking this program. So those could be the three main documents. A lot of people that I work with and serve are in kind of the business coaching, business community space, and so they also need that earnings and income disclaimer. Now, what we're talking about here, though, terms of service or terms of purchase, these are specific to your offerings. This is a different set of terms that applies to what it is you're selling. So that's where people are often asking about a client services agreement versus terms of purchase, because they're ready to become a buyer. And I just want people to be really clear that terms of purchase are different than website terms and conditions, okay? Because in my website protection package, that trio of documents, the website terms and conditions, the privacy policy, the terms of purchase are all included. And for people that need it, the earnings and income disclaimer as well. But they're different documents and their purpose is different. So I just want to make sure that we're using the right lingo. So for terms of purchase and client services agreement, again, you're going to want to assess your enrollment process. Is it a high-end client? Do you want a high-touch experience? Or are you really focusing on ease, on automation, ease for your client, as well as ease for you in the enrollment process? You literally want people to be able to check a box, click and review the terms of purchase if they want to, but it's not necessarily required. There truthfully is no way to require somebody to do that unless you put one of those scroll boxes up. That's as close as you can get, where somebody has to kind of physically scroll to the bottom before they can actually click buy. That is one of the best practices that's available to you online. But that's the analogy that I walk clients through when they're deciding, do I cover this service with a client services agreement, or do I cover it with terms of purchase? It can be done either way. In most circumstances, you just have to really think about your sales process, your desired ease in the process, as well as your client experience. So hopefully that helps. Katie, if you're still with us, give us a thumbs up, or just let me know if you have any other questions about that. I'm happy to answer them. And I think we've covered the questions so far. And then I know Kathleen has a hand up. So if everybody else who was here before is all done, then let's hop over and say hello to Kathleen. Let me just look. Covered copyright, and we covered that one. Okay, great. Good questions, you guys. So Kathleen, are you available to go live?
Yes, I just wanted to say hello to you. You might have missed me. First I had a computer go out, and I had a tablet go out.
Oh gosh.
And then during the month of May, the end of May and June, I didn't have my phone, my landline, and therefore I did not have internet.
Oh, yeah, that's a
and
hassle.
That was not my fault. That was something on CenturyLink's end.
Got it.
Something was wrong. It was happening to several people in the building. Something happened and we were disconnected. Oh. And it just took a long time for it to get fixed because it has to do, they have to be able to get hold of the manager to go into the electrical room.
Yeah,
they're
that's
having
a lot.
trouble getting to the manager.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, Kathleen, it's great to see you today. Do you have a question that I'm able to support you with?
No, but not today, but okay. I just wanted to let you know I was still alive.
Oh, I'm so right. No, I'm glad to see you. You look so lovely today, and congrats on getting your internet reconnected.
Yeah, I always dress nice, but as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, we have meetings for preaching every day, and so I dressed up for my meeting for preaching.
Oh, good for you.
I looked like I was going to the physical meeting, but
isn't that the joy of Zoom, right?
Mm-hmm. We do it over Zoom.
Yeah, so. That's awesome. Well, good for you.
Having our convention right now. It's on our website, jw.org.
Oh, got it.
I'll say because it's your time.
Okay, well, thanks for showing up today. Just out of respect for people's time and the recording, I'm just going to say thanks to everybody for being here and great questions. And we will see you in next month's Ask Me Anything Live. So in the meanwhile, take good care and reach out if you need any support. Okay, signing off. Bye, ladies.